This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Starting today's show is Ashlee Westerhold, Director of the Office of Farm and Ranch Transition at K-State, to review how farms have changed in Kansas and how her office can help with the transition process. K-State's DooHong Min and Guarav Jha continue the show by talking about their research they are doing for drought-resilient alfalfa production using digital agriculture and machine learning. Completing today's show is K-State Research and Extension Horticulture Agent for Johnson County, Anthony Reardon, as he discusses how to get vegetable and flower gardens ready for winter, which was this month's K-State Garden Hour presentation. That and more is coming up ahead on Agriculture Today. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our show discussing how statistically farming has changed in Kansas, as today is National Farmers Day, and a few resources for people who would like to become farmers or are looking to make a transition. And then to talk about this, we're joined by the Director of the Office of Farm and Ranch Transition in K-State's Agricultural Economics Department, Ashlee Westerhold. Ashlee, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So October 12th is National Farmers Day, and before we talk about a few resources you have for farmers, kind of a few statistics of farmers in Kansas.
Yeah, so farmers in Kansas, we have seen these numbers. They're published from Kansas Department of Agriculture and the mix of the USDA Census of Agriculture. So these numbers that I am referencing today are statistics from usually KDA or USDA. So there's actually 58,000 farms here in Kansas. So that is a number that is published from Kansas Department of Ag. And unfortunately, that has shrunk from 63,000 just 10 years ago. So 63,000 farms down to 58. Our Kansas statistic is that our average age of our producer is 58 years old. Over the last 10 years, we've seen that age grow by 3 years. So 10 years ago, the average age was 55, and now it is 58. So we are seeing our Kansas farmer are aging just like the rest of us. They're healthy, they're out on the farm, and they're still kicking. So we are seeing that aging population still be majority of our producers. So 64% of agricultural producers in Kansas are over 55 years old. So we are seeing, again, that age continue to grow over the years. There are 96,000 producers in Kansas. So that could be a farmer, that could be a rancher, that could be someone who has chickens in their backyard that claims to be an agricultural producer. And out of those 96,000 producers, 32,000 are actually female. So we're very excited about those numbers of female producers actually continuing to increase each year. For our farms, we had about 45 million acres in ag production, and that's a 2020 statistic, with the average farm size actually being 784 acres for a farm, which is up from 732 acres on an average farm size in 2010. So that's kind of a landscape or overview of what do farms look like here in Kansas, how important is agriculture to Kansas, and who are the people out there that are celebrating, hopefully, this National Farmers Day.
A couple of really important programs that you've worked on as you've been here at K-State, and one of them being the LandLink program.
Yeah, so we want to see the number of producers continue to increase, or the opportunities for young people to become an agricultural producer. And one of the ways that they can do that is through our LandLink program. So the Kansas LandLink program, you can Google it and just type in Kansas LandLink and it should pop up to our website. And what we are trying to do is match beginning farmers and ranchers with retiring farmers and ranchers who do not have someone interested in taking over the farm. And so we have a wide variety of land seekers, so people who are interested in different things, different opportunities with different landowners. And we have a pool of landowners that are looking for someone excited and capable of taking over the farm. And so on National Farmers Day, it is very fitting that we're talking about the opportunities for people to get into agriculture or to farm full-time. And again, one of the great resources that we have here is our Kansas Land Link program.
And there is an application process for landowners and land seekers.
Yes. So on our landowner side, I really spend the day with the landowners who are applying to be in our program so that I can get a size and scope of their operation, who they're looking for, what their values are, and it's a very hands-on experience. Our land seeker application, they are fully online and they are accessible online, and you fill them out at your own speed at home and you submit them. And once you submit your application, you then are going to receive an email that sets up a phone call with me so that I can kind of have that same conversation about values and what you're looking for. What's your willingness to move? But really trying to have this as a most intimate process where we're playing matchmaker, but we're being very intentional about this.
So not just putting two people together, but hopefully putting two people together that will make a smooth transition for both landowner and land seeker.
And it all goes back to the values. And that's what a lot of my job is helping people identify what those values and expectations are so that this relationship can be fruitful long term.
And is there an application fee for the Land Link program?
Both of our landowners and land seekers want people to have skin in the game when making this decision. We do have an application fee of $100 for the application. Your application is active until you tell me, Ashlee, I've gotten too big or I'm not interested anymore, and then we can pull your application. But you are forever in the Land Link system until you tell me you are not interested anymore. So if a landowner comes available in 5 years and it's a dream situation for you, I will still be sending your application out to that landowner unless you tell me you're not interested.
And for those operations, sometimes there is another generation or someone in the family that is ready to take it over, and that's something else that your office can help with.
Yeah, so not only does my office really work on non-related party transition planning, but we work on related parties. A lot of my job is meeting with farm families about how to transition from one generation to the next, and they've already identified that successor, but there may be questions about how do I transfer machinery? How do I do this with the least amount of tax burden on myself? How do we work together 2 generations on the farm? This child is not my child anymore, but my business partner. How do we handle those conversations? So my office is here to help all farmers in any type of situation because we're always going through a transition. And the Office of Farm and Ranch Transition is here to help you through that process and be your guide, your accountability coach, your cheerleader. And we are here to provide resources to help those transitions.
And Ashlee, for a lot of people, once they're a farmer, they're always a farmer. However, sometimes they do enter into retirement.
Yeah, so we talk about retiring farmers, and that is one thing that is very hard for a lot of people to swallow is the idea of retirement. But my colleague down at Oklahoma State, Shannon Farrell, he said, think of it as you're a farmer emeritus, which means that you are still a farmer. You just get to do the fun jobs and the things you want to do. And you don't have to do all of the work on the farm anymore. And so it's not necessarily retiring where you're at home every day. It's making sure that you are comfortable doing the things you like to do and maybe letting that next generation take over the jobs that you're not interested in working on anymore and giving them the opportunity to make some management decisions.
And the Ag Transitions website also has a place where people might be able to find the professional they're looking for.
A lot of questions that we receive have to deal with, I'm a farmer and I don't know any professionals that have worked with farmers before. Have you met any attorneys that have actually seen our kind of farm situation? And I would get that question so many times in my first year of work here at Kansas or in my last couple of jobs. But the idea is, are there professionals out there that know how to talk with farm families, that understand farm family dynamics? And what my office has done is put together a list of people who've self-identified as people who have worked with farm families. And it's an opportunity for you to find someone close to you, find someone who might understand your situation, and keep you moving forward again in your transition process. So insurance agents, CPAs, lawyers, there are tons of people that are on our website that have an interest in that are willing to help farmers and ranchers.
And where is that website so people could find out more information?
So our website is agcansitions.org. That is AgKansitions.org. agcansitions.org.
And while March is a ways out, during the month, you will be having some meetings related to these topics.
We will be hosting some of our big 3 conferences that we had in the previous year, where we will actually be bringing in, again, my colleague Shannon Farrell from Oklahoma State, who is an ag law professor. And we will be talking about farm succession as the 1,000-foot view of why you should get started, why you should be motivated to have some of these conversations. And so we are having conferences March 5th, 6th, and 7th, and they will go from the western side of the state, Garden City, all the way to Manhattan on the 7th. And we are very excited. Please look at our website, agtransitions.org, or go to AgManager.info, and we will be updating where those are, when you can register, as we have that information.
And Ashlee, as you look forward for Kansas agriculture and its farmers, what makes you excited?
I tell people this all the time, but the farm families that I've met in Kansas are by far the best people I have ever met. They are the most educated, the most innovative. They are always thinking ahead, always pre-planning, and I just want those values to continue in our society. I want the hardworking nature of farmers to be pushed to every kid out in America today, but I'm excited for Kansas. I want our Kansas farms to continue to be Kansas farms and Kansas family-owned farms.
That was Director of the Office of Farm and Ranch Transition, Ashlee Westerhold. I will link the resources that she mentioned in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be back with more ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our Thursday show discussing some research that will be taking place at K-State. And 2 of those people working on this research is the Assistant Professor in Precision Agriculture, Guarav Jha, and Associate Professor in Forage Management, DooHong Min. Guarav, DooHong, thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, Shelby.
So this research, you're talking about drought-resilient alfalfa production using digital agriculture and machine learning techniques. And before we kind of talk about the research and what you're planning on doing, Guarav, how did this come about?
So it's an exciting journey to get to the point where we got this proposal funded. So Min and I, I'm a new faculty here, so I was just walking through and we decided to have coffee and discuss some ideas where proposals, both for research and teaching, could be strengthened. So out of those, we discussed in this proposal, water management is a concern. So we thought we can put a proposal together, and there was an announcement for this USDA call. And then we decided, and we put the proposal together and got funded. So everything started over coffee, and here we are.
And DooHong, what made you want to help with this proposal?
Yeah, as a forage agronomist, as you know, alfalfa is the most important forage crop in the state of Kansas. Alfalfa is a perennial leguminous crop. It fixes its own nitrogen, and it can last more than 5 years easily, depending on the management skills. And also alfalfa, as I said, the most important forage crop because of its highest yield and nutritive value, and that's why we call it queen of forages. And unfortunately, the Ogallala aquifer water level is getting lower and lower. But 2/3 of alfalfa is produced in southwest Kansas. So the importance of growing forage alfalfa is very important for beef and dairy industry in the state of Kansas.
Something important, and you mentioned drought and that some water resources are diminishing a little bit, and so water stress, something really important to think about in this research.
So the title itself, it says Drought Resilient Alfalfa Production. We like to call it as a DRAP, using digital agriculture and machine learning techniques. So the goal is to optimize water use efficiency. So we hear about the depleting Ogallala aquifer levels and also the drought concerns all across the state, and it's moving. We wanted to keep it more resilient system and not focus on just maximizing the yield and other things. So that's what our goal was, to work around water use in alfalfa and use digital agriculture techniques like drones. We are also integrating satellite and other machine learning techniques here.
So how are you using those drones and satellites?
So we'll be using first research-grade equipments also to validate what is commercially available. So I want to point out two parts of this research. There is a commercial aspect to it. We are partnering with industries. We are having point-based sensors, and then we are collecting aerial imagery. A lot of these satellites data are freely available. A lot of it we are working with different industry, like for example, Planet Labs. Texas A&M is also part of it, so we will be collaboratively developing these techniques. So that's how we are kind of using our laboratory. My lab has drones, and then Texas A&M Digital Agronomy Lab, they also have different aerial techniques that will be leveraged for this research.
This is obviously an important topic to Kansas, but your team is more than just Kansas, and hopefully then not only impacting Kansas, but then maybe the whole country.
Yeah, Southern Great Plains.
And as you're thinking about drought-resilient alfalfa production and using all these different resources, is it correct to say that you're not looking at varieties of alfalfa, but kind of taking a different avenue to it?
Yeah, so the goal here is we're not focusing on particular variety at this point. We will be having different varieties in different locations, so that is definitely an advantage. But the overarching goal of this project is to identify ways or techniques that can help us in using water efficiently. One, we can use soil-based water content, like, for example, soil moisture sensors, and then irrigate it. A lot of growers use it, but then crop is growing, and then if we want a spatial data during the season, it's only going to happen from the top as the soil crop is growing. So we decided to have evapotranspiration, or the loss of water to atmosphere, as one of the parameters that we will be measuring using sensors and other spectral imagery, or the photographic drone techniques that we are going to take. So we are going to use those at one point timestamp, and then going to predict what is going to happen in future for next couple of days based upon the data that we are collecting. So idea is to have a prediction-based model for how much amount of water is being lost or being used by the crop, and then providing recommendation or optimized use of water in those areas.
Guarav, you're in precision agriculture, and DooHong, you're in forage management. However, you guys have an economical aspect in this research as well.
Right. So the economic aspect, we have an economist on board from Texas A&M who will be looking after this economic angle of the proposal, where we not only look into economic side of it, but balancing it both in terms of energy as well as the cost-benefit angle for the project. So we do account for what is available, for example, user-friendliness, interface of the sensors, and other aspect that growers might have to go, not just to install the sensors, but to manage the sensor. So that part is more important when it comes to adoption. We have to put that on plate. We can do the science, but I believe it's important to also put how much that science costs to be adopted.
And Guarav, DooHong, in your respective fields of expertise, how do you see this work benefiting our ag producers?
So, as I mentioned earlier, the alfalfa is the most important forage crop in the state of Kansas for dairy and beef industry. So without this alfalfa, those livestock may not exist. So it's a very important crop. So as an agronomist, we need to figure out how we can grow alfalfa under irrigation or rain-fed condition more effectively, more efficiently by minimizing the water loss. In other words, more improving the water use efficiency in alfalfa production and management.
For me, in the areas that I'm interested in with precision agriculture, for my program, I'm not defining the crop that I want to work on in anything specifically. With precision ag, you got to go where it's needed. So my overarching goal, again, here would be water use optimization. There are models that I have used in other crops while I was in other drought-stressed areas like California and Montana, and then used the models in different crops. So I anticipate using these models in alfalfa and other crops important to Kansas. So I think alfalfa is economically important to Kansas, and that's a good route to go to see an impact over just water use and the economy of the state.
One thing that I want to add is that this research is very unique in terms of the using digital agriculture and the machine learning techniques. Our proposal was the only one using this type of techniques out of 4 proposals that were funded out of 80 proposals, probably. It was very competitive, and then Kansas proposal was one of them. So we are very proud of ourselves.
Yeah, and excitingly, we did turn around this proposal in a very short time. We just had 15 days around, and then we had to put up the team together, idea together, and then it just worked out with all the help we have from the team of precision agronomist, forage agronomist, digital ag person, agricultural economist on board. So it's a diverse team, and we hope we are going to put a lot of good information on plate for the growers.
That was Kansas State University Assistant Professor in Precision Agriculture, Guarav, and he was joined by K-State Associate Professor in Forage Management, DooHong. These two gentlemen are part of a team that's working on a research looking into drought-resilient alfalfa production using digital agriculture and machine learning techniques. I will post a link in today's show notes on agtoday.net where you're able to read a little bit more about the project. Before we cut to a break, I would now like to remind you about some information from the Farm Service Agency. This information is about the Inflation Reduction Act, Section 22007. Under this program, USDA is providing financial assistance to farmers and ranchers who experience discrimination in FSA lending. The program is being administered by private companies with USDA oversight and supervision. A recent change to this is the application period is now open until January 13th, 2024. Again, that is a change from previous times, and the application period is open until January 13th, 2024. If this is your first time hearing about this discrimination financial assistance program, it's for farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners who experience discrimination in USDA lending programs prior to January 2021. Borrowers have the option to apply for assistance online via 22007apply.gov or through a paper-based form. Details about the program, including an application and e-filing portal, are available at 22007apply.gov. The website includes English and Spanish language, and applicants can download or submit via e-filing portal. Applicants can also call a center at 1-800-721-0970. Again, that is 1-800-721-0970, or visit the multiple brick-and-mortar offices the program has set up around the country. It is important to note that filing an application is free and does not require a lawyer. If you'd like to find out more information about the Inflation Reduction Act, Section 22007, Discrimination Financial Assistance Program, you can once again go to 22007apply.gov, and I will link that in today's show notes, as well as the number that people can call for more information. We're now cutting to a short break on Agriculture Today, but we have more for you ahead.
This is Agriculture Today. Along with Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. This month's K-State Garden Hour focused on putting the garden to bed winter garden prep. K-State Research and Extension Horticulture Agent for Johnson County, Anthony Reardon, says there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the vegetable and flower gardens, along with amending soil, caring for trees, shrubs, and the lawn, and some basic winterization. In the vegetable garden, Reardon says the tender vegetables need to be picked before a hard frost.
And one of the main things you need to keep in mind when it comes to your vegetable gardens is you need to look at what plants you have in there and think about what plants are going to be able to make it through the fall. There are certain ones that are going to not mind the cold weather. They'll actually perform better and have better flavor. And there's other ones that will, with a slight frost, completely die off for you. All of your fruiting plants are going to be the ones that are very tender, very sensitive to those frosty weather and temperatures. As opposed to that, you're going to have your leafy greens, your brassicas, your rooting crops. Those are actually going to like the winter temperatures. So those will be what you want to keep in the ground as opposed to what you need to get out of the ground before the first frost of the season. A few other things to keep in mind. When it does come time to actually clean out your vegetable garden, you want to fully clean it out. You can either compost the plants that are in there, or you can till them into the ground and add that organic matter directly back into the soil. Or if you have had disease issues or infested plants with a certain pest this year, you want to get all of those plants out of there and throw them away, because this is your opportunity to completely sterilize your garden and get it ready for next season. And that includes weeds, because weeds are a safe harbor for both pests and disease. So you want to get all of that away and out of your garden. Also, at this time of year, you can incorporate compost and organic matter to enrich your soil. What you want to make sure you're doing is you're adding this after you are done growing anything for the season, because compost can be a bit hydrophobic for the first few weeks to months that it is incorporated into the soil. Adding it now, it should have enough time over the winter to fully bind to the soil that's in your garden, and it should be great to use then in the spring. Mulching your beds to prevent winter erosion is also very much recommended, or you can use cover crops. So another thing to keep in mind with your vegetable gardens is there are methods of season extension that you can practice. Here in Kansas, the weather in the fall is very unpredictable. It can be, freezing one day, and then for the next 6 weeks, it can be 90-degree temperatures. So if you can protect your plants for that one freezing day, you can theoretically extend your season all the way through December, really. And the methods of doing that vary. You can take a sheet or a cover cloth and go over your plants. You just want to make sure that all of the air is completely stale and not moving around on your plants. Or you could even use overturned buckets or a milk jug or a bowl and just set them on top of the plant. What you want to make sure in those cases to do is to not have the edges of the plant touching the edges of the covers at all, because those edges will freeze. With the sheets and or cloths, the edges of your plants may still freeze, but they will mostly still be protected. So some other considerations with flower gardens. Your annuals, those are typically small enough that they're not going to be having too much of a benefit once they decline and die off. So you can go ahead and get those out of there. Again, you want to remove your weeds because those are just a pest safe haven. You don't want them in your garden. Downsize overgrown plants. So you can still trim on your plants. You just don't want to remove all of the habitat that could be there for the beneficials. Your summer bulbs are likely not going to make it through the winter. So your gladiolus, dahlia, begonia, canna, those are the ones you're going to want to dig up. Mulch your perennial beds. And you want to do this after a couple of frosts. And that is because if you do it before a couple of frosts, your plants will not fully be dormant. And in that case, you've got your plant cut back, and it's going to start using the carbohydrate reserves in those roots to start growing back up during the fall. And instead of using those carbohydrates to get through the winter, you've essentially just shrunken your plants and taken away its ability to survive. So you want it to be fully dormant. And then consider leaving seeds and hollow stems for wildlife and beneficial insects. The birds and the squirrels need to eat as well. And so if you are trying to be a friend of wildlife, you may want to consider leaving those seeds.
That's K-State Research and Extension Horticulture Agent for Johnson County, Anthony Reardon, with information on putting the garden to bed, winter garden prep. To view the October Garden Hour, go to hnr.k-state.edu. And that'll do it for this edition of Agriculture Today. For Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. This is the K-State Radio Network.